Cube sidebar. It contains the tree structure of your DataMiner system, but actually a lot more. And it also has some nice cool features as well that I want to show you. Let's get started. So the DataMiner Cube sidebar. First of all, I'll give you a quick introduction and then we'll dive into the most important tab page that you are most frequently going to use, the Surveyor tree structure, but also the activity is quite interesting. And we'll also take a look at the apps, the workspaces, and we'll wrap it up with the search. So first of all, we're talking about that side panel, which is by default on the left-hand side. But if you want, you can also, through your user settings, move it to the right-hand side if you prefer it that way. There's also a shortcut, pressing and holding Ctrl-Alt-Shift, and then you can, with the left and right arrow, move it left or right. So it can be collapsed. If you click the open button, it will close again, and then it's only the blue side panel. If you click any of the tabs or buttons on there, it will open that panel in a docked manner. If you select it again, it closes again, or you can just move to other pages. Very simple, very straightforward, but very useful. So the first one is the Surveyor. The Surveyor shows you the tree structure that you've built of your DataMiner system. So you decide the different views that are in there, how it is organized, where the elements and the services are located. That helps you to find your element that you want to navigate to. So really think about how to organize that tree structure, because that's a very important way of navigating in your system, but also for filtering and security purposes. Now, you will notice that the alarms that are happening on the elements and the services is automatically bubbling up to the view through the view structure all the way to the top. The top is the so-called root view. The root view has the name of the company that you, or your company that you specified in the settings. We'll see that in the administrator part where you can configure those system settings. Not only the color coding of the alarms is bubbling up, but also the orange cross indicating a timeout is bubbling up separately from the alarm severity. So you can see that in the America view, there is a critical alarm, but no timeout, while in the Africa view, there is a critical alarm, but also at least one element in a timeout. Now, of course, you can use that by just clicking on any of the items in there, and it will open up the associated card. We've already played with that in a previous video, so you can just select on a view, an element, a service, a redundancy group, and it will each time open up the associated card. So that's a very convenient panel you typically have open a lot of the time. Taking a quick look at the right-click menu, here you have on the left-hand side a right-click menu of a view, and here you have it of an element. So a view has the expand, collapse, the different open options. So if you click on it, it will do the default open, but you can also go for open a new card, which is the same as a shift click, and also a control click, or a control click for new card, and an undocked card is the shift click. And then the remaining options are more editing, administrative stuff, so we're not going to go into too much detail on those. Except properties, I'll come back to that one. The right click for a element, a little bit the same thing, the different open items you have. And then you have very interesting also immediate access to changing the state of an element to active, paused, stopped, or also masking or unmasking an element. We'll take a closer look in the next module to the alarming and play around with the masking, but that is conveniently available immediately by right-clicking on the element. And note that those right-click menus, they are basically the same throughout the system. If you right-click on an element in a visual overview or in the Surveyor, it doesn't really matter, it will always show this same familiar right-click menu. Multiple sets, we'll come back to that later on. That's a multiple sets across different elements. That's something we will play with in the elements overview module. And then we have again some more editing options, some view protocol and viewing from log file, things like that, stream viewer. You can play around with that. And some actions that we will do through the administrator part. The thing I want to further take a look at is the properties. Because in the properties, we are actually able to see two types of properties. So, well, maybe first of all, each object in a DataMiner system has properties, whether it's a view, an element, a service. So even alarms have properties. You have some default system properties, you could say, and that's available on the first tab page, the general tab page. In this case, for the elements that we selected, we can see when it was created, modified, or last modified, when the alarm template was changed, etc. So those are default properties that are always available for a specific object. But the interesting part comes into the second tab page, where we can add and define our own custom properties, as we call them. Custom properties allow you to add additional information to views or elements or services. So if you want to add, for instance, a class, if it's a gold, silver or bronze service, or maybe a contact person, or maybe if it's a manned or an unmanned site for a specific view, you can add that additional information. Also maybe a latitude, longitude that you will use maybe later on through some other modules in DataMiner. Note there is a possibility to also automatically populate this with information coming from an inventory database if that would be required. Properties on alarms are a little bit different. We will come back to that in the next module in the alarm console. Now, a small note that I want to make clear is whether if you define a new property, we'll immediately show that. If you define a new property, for instance, on an element, like let's say class, gold, silver, bronze, it will be available, the property, on every element in your system. So it's always a system-wide property you add, whether it is to views, elements, or services. Each of them have their own set of properties. So you can add an element property, a view property, a service property. And then every element, every view, every service will have that property. But every element or every view or every service, you can configure if it is a gold, silver, or bronze. So every element has individually its own value for this property. So keep that in mind, that a property is system-wide, but the value that you define for a property is specific for every single object in the DataMiner system. Now, how do you add that? Well, if you have a list of properties available, you do have this cogwheel at the bottom. If you click on there, you can add or edit the selected or delete the selected item or property. So if you click and go for the add, you will get this window. Let's first take a look at that, and then we can add one in our DataMiner system. So the first thing we need to specify is a name. So you just give it a meaningful name, like a category in this case, or could be class. And then we have three options. Just take a second to take a look at that. The first one, you need to handle with care. That's make this property available for alarm filtering. And why do I say you need to handle it with care? That is because if you activate this option, this property will be attached to every alarm that is being generated in your DataMiner system so that you can use it for alarm filtering. That's quite convenient because you can also then have it in your alarm console and show immediately the category or the class of the element or the service that is associated with the alarm. So that is an interesting option. It gives you a lot of possibilities. But why do I say you need to handle it with a little bit of cautious? That is because it makes your alarms bigger. It doesn't really has that much of an impact if you only activated it for one or two properties, but if you would do it for 50, 100 properties, then your alarm and your alarm database would grow. So only activate it when you need it, effectively in the alarming. The second option is display this property in the Surveyor. That's actually quite interesting. Because if I'm working with some equipment and I select a device or I see a device in my Surveyor, I can immediately next to it visualize if it's a gold, silver, bronze, for instance, or any of the properties that I have available. Of course, I'm not going to display 10 different properties, otherwise the name would have like a lengthy series of properties next to it, but just a couple of key things that I want to visualize can be done with activating this checkbox. Update the alarm on value changed. Update alarms on value changed. So if it would suddenly go from a gold to a silver, do the alarms need to be updated? Yes or no? Those are a couple of options, but mainly I just specify a name and then I specify also what the value should look like. Can I just type in anything? No format specified. There's no limitations there, so everything is accepted. Or you could go for a regular expression. If you're not familiar with regular expressions, you can Google on that. There's a lot of different possibilities you can do. Just to name one simple example here, you can say that it first needs to start with letters from A to Z 3 times, so like A, B, C, and then it needs to contain a dash, and then again it has to have some numbers, in this case from 0 to 9, again 3 times, like 1, 2, 3. So ABC dash 1, 2, 3 would be allowed, but 1, 2, 3 ABC would not be allowed. So you can do a lot of wild things with that. So if you want to match it up with like the format of a trouble ticket ID or something like that, you can do so. The third option you have is possible values. So if you want to have a drop down for the user where he can just pick and choose one of the available options, you can specify all the different possible options, like in this case, gold, silver, bronze. Note the metric that is for sorting purposes. By default, it will be alphabetically done. Okay, let's take a look at that in our DataMiner system. So we have our Surveyor. So we are connected to the dcp-dma.skyline.be, which is publicly available. So the Surveyor, I can close it. I can open it by clicking on that button. We will take a look at the other tab pages in just a minute as well. First of all, I'll take a look at the Surveyor. So I have my tree structure. So if I click on an item, it automatically opens up that associated page. Or if I go to a device, it opens up the device. That's all straightforward. I do actually see that my DMA info already has some additional information next to it. So maybe we need to check that out, how that works, because it says here tags, filtered parameter options, visual overview. There are apparently some examples of visual overview stuff in here tagged. So let's right click and go to properties. So as I mentioned, we have our general properties, the default ones, when it was created, the element, last modified, etc. And I can define some custom properties. So you can see there are some custom properties already defined in the system here. And the tags are in here as well. That's what is being displayed here. So if I want to add a brand new one, we already have a class, but let's add another class. So I click on the cogwheel, add, and I say, for instance, Bert, I'll give it my name, class, just to make that clear. If you want to display the property in the Surveyor, yeah, let's maybe do that. And let's go for possible values and add the gold, silver, and bronze. Okay. Okay, so I created a new property and I can immediately define for this one that it's a gold. Okay. And maybe there will be, okay, it's at the beginning there, I'm lucky. Bert class gold, so if I take the second element, you will notice that this Bert class is also available there. I can make this one a silver and I can go to the third one and I can make the third one custom property, the Bert class, a bronze. Okay, so that's how you can visualize it. And if you activate it for alarm filtering, we will be able to also use it in the alarm console. So Very interesting to add some additional information to any of the objects. I did it now on a view, you can on an element. You can also do it on a view or on a surface. And the alarms will do that in the next module, the alarms. Okay, so we had properties, but also the icon that is in front of a view and an element. You can play a little bit with that. You can see here in a screenshot what you can actually do with it. If you activate every option you have available, I can immediately say that's a little bit over the top. It's not really the objective to have everything activated and break up the icon into like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 different icon levels or layers. But it allows you to activate some of them individually, if you would like to do so. So how can you do that? I'll show you also with an example. If you go to your user settings, this is a user setting. Note, you can configure group settings if you want to enforce this setting immediately for all the people of a specific security group. You can do so with the configuring of the group. I'll do it here for a user. So within the icons section, you do have, first of all, the option to use the modern icons. Those are the icons that I currently have in my system. Those are the modern icons. If I deactivate it, I will have those options to do a couple of things. What can I do? First of all, I can split the view alarm level. What is splitting the view alarm level? Well, while I'm going to my settings, you will notice that every view has one line there in front of it with the color coding of everything that is below it. Well, if I go to the settings, the icon settings, and if I disable the modern icons and the view level, the view alarm level is by default consolidated, one icon. If I split it, what will happen, instead of having one line in front of the view, you will have 2 lines. And you will see that, let me maybe go to operations. You will see, for instance, that within Europe, I do have 2 lines. The yellow line indicates everything which is directly in Europe and not in a subview. The red line or icon is indicating what is the consolidation of the sum of the subviews. So I see that there is a critical alarm in one of the subviews. Let's take a look underneath Europe, and indeed, here in the Netherlands we have a critical alarm. And the yellow is coming from a service, the My Service here, which is directly underneath the Europe view. If I would go in the Netherlands here, you can see the Netherlands is gray. There is nothing directly under the Netherlands. Everything is in the Amsterdam view. So that's basically splitting the icon, what is directly underneath the view and what is under the subviews. That's the first split you can do. Let me reset that and apply it so that I have back one line for the views. And then next to that, you have the latch level. You have the latch level on a view, on an element, and on a surface. Or element and surface. The element alarm level, yeah, you can have the timeout being included. Normally it's the cross icon that is separate. You can actually include it that the timeout overrules the critical alarm, for instance. But the latch level, what is the latch level that you have on a view, on an element, and on a surface? Well, what I will do, I will activate it, let's say, on an element. I do have some elements here. The elements are currently one line. Well, actually, maybe I can also activate it on a view. So everything has one line. If I apply that, you notice that everything has not a full double line, but a small line next to it. And what is that indicating? Well, that is actually indicating what the highest alarm has been, and it has been latched. It remembers the most severe alarm. Let me start with clearing that, because now in my right-click menu, I have a reset of the latch level. If I reset the latch level, it becomes the yellow because let me maybe go to normal state. First, reset latch level. All right, I'll also reset this latch level. Now everything is perfectly fine. And let's assume I just go for a cup of coffee. And in the meantime, what is happening is that all of a sudden there is a critical alarm happening, but the critical alarm happens only for a few seconds and then it goes back to a normal state. So if I get back with my coffee and I see this situation, well, I would think like, okay, there's nothing wrong until I see that latch level. Then I see like, oh, something has happened with this device. Maybe only a short period of time, but it has been an alarm since I was gone. So I can take a closer look at it, take a closer look at the alarms that were happening and things like that. And if I'm happy with it, I can just say reset latch again and it will go back to normal. Note, this latch level is being remembered on the server. So everybody is looking at the same latch level. So if I reset it, it's resetted for everybody looking at the system. So it doesn't matter who is picking up on the problem and who is taking a look at what happens. If they reset the latch, then it is resetted for everybody. You can also do that on a view level. Immediately you see the latch, combined latch over there, and you can also reset everything underneath a view. So works the same principle. So activating that latch might be something that is of interest for you. I'll go back to the regular view. There is one last one that I did not activate here. So we had the split of the icons and the short icons that are added to it. There is also actually a small triangle that can be added. That's the aggregation level that can be shown. What is the aggregation? Basically, it is possible to aggregate information from all the elements inside one view. And for instance, if you have 100 servers or switches in a view, you can calculate, for instance, a minimum of the CPU load, an average or a max. So you can aggregate parameters onto a view. And those aggregated parameters, like an average of the CPU load in a certain view, in a certain site, in a certain room, that average level of all those servers, you can do alarming on it as well. And if you want to see that alarm separate, you can show it in that triangle. So it's perfectly possible that, let's say that I have a view which is normal, a green bar, because all my servers are perfectly okay, but the little triangle is in alarm because my average load, CPU load for instance, is getting a little bit too high. So I'll need to do something about that. There's nothing wrong with my servers, but combined, the average load of my servers is getting a little bit high, so it's starting to generate an aggregated alarm on a view, not on an element level. Aggregation, we'll talk about that later on as well. So the triangle shows you that aggregated level, potentially separated. If you don't do it separated, it's all in one icon. You will need to figure out where the alarm comes from. So it's basically allowing you to immediately visually already separate a little bit the alarming inside the icon so that you can make a faster assessment of what is happening. Typically, you don't combine everything together, as I mentioned before. Now, two more things that I want to mention about the Surveyor, which are very interesting, is some enrichments you can do. The first thing, first, before I go to both of them, you need to configure this in the maintenance settings.xml on the server. There is more information on the help how to do that. You need to configure it in an XML file and you need to restart your DataMiner system. And then it will add enrichments like we have over here. That's an example where we see some alarm statistics immediately next to the view. So you can actually say like, okay, instead of just showing me a view, you immediately want to show next to it how many alarms are in there, or maybe even how many criticals or majors or warnings reminders are in that view. So that if I have two views, that I can immediately see how many alarms are actually in there. And that is something that we have configured. Let me check. We have it configured here on DCP-DMA with the total. So you choose how this is formatted, and if there is an indication of total, or if you just say like a sharp sign with the number behind it. So you define the format and what you want to show. In this case, it shows only the number and total. I do have another example here on the demo system where we see not only the total, but also a dash and the number of criticals and the number of majors. So if you then have, for instance, a couple of different continents in your system or sites, you will immediately see like, okay, Australia 3 criticals and Europe 74. I'm gonna have to take a look there on what's happening there. And I can see that within Europe that the bulk of the alarms is actually happening in Brussels. So Brussels has 49, so I need to further take a look at that. So that's allowing you to immediately add that extra information in your Surveyor tree structure. So definitely a very interesting feature, I believe. The last item that you can enhance on your Surveyor tree structure is the blinking. The blinking, what is the blinking? You can actually let the alarm color coding of the views and also inside the alarm console and inside your graphics. So if you have, for instance, an overview like the world map with different sites, the different color coding. Here, this is all static. There's no blinking here. But you can let that blink. Well, it doesn't blink all the time. It blinks whenever there is an alarm without an owner. Basically, a brand new alarm. So whenever a brand new alarm pops up in your DataMiner system, it is blinking. And you can define the frequency. So you can make it like very annoying or a little bit more subtle, but it is blinking. And that means that, okay, I see there's something new there. I dive into the system and I say like, okay, that's something for me. I right click on the alarm, I take ownership. We'll talk about taking ownership in the next module, but you take ownership, you put your name on it, it has an owner, I'll take care of the alarm. And then it stops blinking and then it's steady again. And that really allows you, if you have this kind of overview, to see like, okay, my world map, I do see some critical problems. Well, actually in every continent I have some problems, but yeah, I have a lot of equipment. There's always something happening there. So that's reality. The most important thing is that somebody is handling the problem. And that is effectively the case. If I would look, by the way, this is not activated on this system, but if it would be activated, I know if everything is steady, okay, everybody is taking ownership of the alarms. Every alarm has an owner, so all the alarms are being handled. If all of a sudden there is a problem popping up in the USA, a new alarm, the new alarm pops up in the system, it will be blinking, and also my USA view here would be blinking. And I would immediately see like, oh, watch out guys, USA is suddenly starting to blink, we need to take a look at it. You drill down, you take the alarm, somebody takes ownership of it, and then it's steady again. So that really helps you to see where new things are popping up, because typically indeed there are always several things happening at the same time, and there are always some alarms in your system. Okay, so blinking can really help you to pinpoint new alarms popping up in your DataMiner system. Okay, so that's a little bit on the Surveyor. Now, if we take a look at the other tab pages that are available in my Surveyor, the next one, activity, I find very fascinating as well. And there are a couple of nice things to say about it, because first of all, let me go to my DCP-DMA. So first of all, you will notice if you don't have any pinned items, you won't see that, but you do have here a history of which devices or elements or services or views or settings or apps you have been accessing. So if you quickly want to get back to something that you've accessed last week or something, you will still find that in there, and you can just open it up and use it like your Surveyor. But if you have like favorites or popular elements or views in your DataMiner system, you can immediately link them by, if you move your mouse over it, the link pin icon there will be shown, and you can click on there, and then it becomes available in a section, the pinned section. You can do it also with a view. You can also do it with apps, things like that. For instance, the documents I accessed earlier. So those are some of my favorite or pinned items. But what is really nice is that if I open up my DataMiner system and I close all the cards, you also have that immediately available on this home page of DataMiner Cube. So if I open it up in the morning, I can immediately go to my favorite devices or elements or services, etc. And I can immediately open it up and start working with it. But also note that these favorites and pinned items, or your complete activity history, is being stored on the server with your user settings. So it doesn't matter which computer I open, I always have those pinned and recently accessed objects available. And that is across any device. Because also in the web-based HTML5 version of Cube, you will have those same favorite items. So that means if I'm working on something on my laptop and I close it up and I go home, and suddenly somebody calls me like, oh, you forgot something, you still need to work on that same device where you just recently worked on, I can just take my phone, take a tablet, connect to the system, and with the HTML5 mobile version, I will have immediately access with the recent or the pinned items to that same element or service, for instance, to continue my work on it. So that's really nice and smooth. Okay, so the next tab page that I want to show there, that is the apps. The apps is allowing you to show or to access a series of DataMiner modules as you see it here. A lot of these modules might not be available depending on your security, because there are some modules in there which are more administrative stuff. For instance, like creating automation scripts, bookings, correlation, protocols and templates. So that is something we will get back to in the administrator part. But there are some that are interesting. For instance, the trending, which is just here below above me, or the documents we already saw. So there are some general accessible operator modules in there as well. The applications, which is collapsed here, well, I don't believe we have any on the DCP DMA, but we do have some on our demo system. I can just briefly show you. That allows us to plug in off-the-shelf applications or also build custom applications. Typically, those are apps for specific environments, like an IP network manager or an IMRA manager, an SNG manager, a truck app, a PTP app, all these kind of different plug-in applications we might add quickly and easy to your system. You can find them in here. The modules and the general is then more general modules. Let me remove myself, which are also actually available. If you click on your user icon on the top right of your DataMiner Cube, you will also find the help, the settings, and the about from there. So that is the same link there. The last tab page that is available there is Workspaces. At the very bottom, you do have Workspaces. Now, what is a workspace? A workspace is basically allowing you to save a specific layout workspace, a layout of cards. Let's say that you typically have to open up a view where you have a nice top-level map of your operations with some important subsites or something like that. That's a typical layout that you like to have open to have a general overview. you can actually save that instead of each time opening up 4 cards and organizing it. Once you've done that, you can save the workspace, give it a name, and then it will become available in this list of workspaces that you already created before. Now, the workspace is a system-wide setting. It means that if you create one, I will be able to see it as well. If I create one, you will be able to see it as well. So it's shared amongst all the users. If you select any of those workspaces, it immediately opens up all the cards that are in there and opens up that layout. If you want to close all the cards, you can also clean workspace. So then it cleans your workspace, so it closes all the cards, so you can start all over again. Let me show you how that works. So if I go to my DCP-DMA and I go to my Surveyor, I mentioned before that you can easily open up several cards. If you just click on it, it opens up the cards. But if you do a control click on there, for instance, if I open up the linking shapes as well, and maybe also my DMA info as well, so I have 3 views open. You can choose the layout how you want it. Let's go maybe for a master on the top, and I do want my world map on the top, of course, and put it like this. Okay, this is something that I typically want to open up on a daily basis. Let's go to that workspaces and let's save my workspace as my home page. Save, and it pops up in there. So if I clean the workspace, it closes all the cards again. If I want to recall that workspace, I can just open it up again. Note that also in your user settings, you can define that this workspace needs to be opened when you log in, when you open up a new session. So in the morning, that this is the default one. By default, I can show you in your user settings, it will be configured on recent activity. The cube sites. So the welcome is the default, the home page, the background, the homepage. But I can choose, for instance, my new homepage that I just created as the default workspace whenever I log in the morning. Now, so if I want to open up any of the other, you can just click on there and it will open up different workspaces. I can also show you on the other on the other system, for instance. If I open up, for instance, the Studio One, I have a lot of them here. I will have, again, one top and a couple of them underneath it. So with some video thumbnails in there and some studio. The London, I believe that this one has the master on the left-hand side, or the uplink that will be in proportional. Well, actually smaller ones on the right-hand side. So the layout is also remembered if it's with a master on top or on the right or on the left or all on the same size. That's also remembered. Or this one with tab pages, or there is only one. Okay, so that's the workspaces. And yeah, one thing I should also mention, of course, is I can easily, of course, use the different workspaces on top there as well. Next to your DataMiner logo, if you don't see those buttons there, you can activate them by clicking there, show cube sites. So if it's not activated, you can activate it there. So if I open up my first workspace here with the Brussels IRD there, I can go to a next workspace. And I can open up again a different workspace, like for instance my homepage on there. So that's how I can easily open up different workspaces on the different sides of my cube, and I can easily switch back and forward between those workspaces. Okay, one final tab page, which is not visible by default, is the search. The search is actually something that can pop up in there whenever you go for searching something and you select the advanced search inside the drop-down. Because if I start typing in there, it will immediately give me actually my history. My activity is there again with the pinned items there. So also here that is available. You don't necessarily need to go to the background or go to the activity. If you just click in the search, you already have the same list again. But if I search on something, it gives me some results, but you can go to the advanced search as the last item in the drop down. If you select that one, it will add your result set in there, and I do have a little bit more flexibility or more options. Before I talk about them, note that you can, in the filtering, also use negative filtering. So if you want to remove, for instance, every item that contains BBC, you can say exclamation mark BBC, and it will remove those items from the search. So that's a negative search. You can also use double quotes, and you need to use double quotes because if you want to use spaces in the exact search. If I would just type IRD01 space 01 without the double quotes, it would search for somewhere IRD and somewhere 01. But maybe I'm looking for specifically IRD space 01 as one word or one phrase. You need to use the double quotes. If I go for that advanced search, you will see some additional filtering possibilities. So you can search on the type. Let's take a look at that. I was searching for IRD. I have a lot of hits. Actually, 30 of them are elements, 6 of them are parameters or scripts or users or workspaces. So actually, I'm looking for elements. If I say elements, you will see that you can also even search then on, for instance, critical. So I see all my critical IRDs. So you can use that to do some more narrow down filtering. Note, search more is more also searching on the server, which might potentially give some more results there. Note, you can also search on parameters. So if, for instance, I'm looking for memory and I go for the advanced search, it will look within the elements to the parameters as well. Not all the parameters, but all the trended parameters are actually being indexed as well. So I will see some virtual memory, physical memory of the DMA info or DMA01, and those are trended. So that means if I, for instance, for DMA1 want to see what the physical memory usage does, then I can immediately click on it and it opens up the element, immediately drill down into that parameter, immediately getting the trend graph for me so that I can see the trend evolution of that parameter. So that's also a convenient thing where you just type in a parameter name and you can from the list immediately open up that parameter on the trending there. Okay, so that's the advanced search that might also help you out when searching something more specific in your DataMiner system there. So that was pretty much the DataMiner Cube sidebar. The sidebar is really about navigation in the first instance, you could say. So it helps you out with that tree structure to easily find your way. Remember those nice features in there with the enrichments, potentially blinking or just adding additional properties or alarm statistics next to the name. That might be interesting. But then next to the tree structure, of course, we have that activity with the pinned items. Definitely a very handy feature there. Next to that, we also have some apps in our DataMiner system. And we had the workspaces where you can save a certain layout of your DataMiner Cube interface. And the advanced search we cannot forget about as well, of course. I hope that was interesting. And next is the alarm console that is coming up.